If you haven't already, subscribe on iTunes. And while you're there, please leave us a rating and review.
Or lease in the morning.
Hello and welcome to Paratalk with the East Tennessee Ghost Seekers. Paratalk podcast contains explicit language, scary content, and adult humor. Parental discretion is advised.
It's time for Paratalk, a wide-ranging discussion covering hauntings, paranormal encounters, UFOs, cryptids, and true crime. With your host, Stephen Brown, and your East Tennessee Ghost Seekers, Steve Wiseman, Andrea Brown, Elsie Adams, Jesse Arms, Amy Sharp, Justin Howard, and me, Mike Howard. To join in the discussion, email etgsparatalk@gmail.com. And now, it's time for Paratalk.
All right, we're back on Friday.
Yup.
Friday. And we've got a full house.
We do.
And it's odd that Hockey Man, while the intro music there was playing and stuff, he's like, full house? It's like he knew.
Oh, it's like he's got ESPN or something.
We have ESPN.
Maybe he's an alien.
Yes, I have ESPN Deportes.
Oh, nice.
Nice.
You're being deported? Is that because you're Asian?
I'm Eurasian.
He's playing cards, Hockey Man is.
Nice. Well, enjoy Paratalk while you play cards, and if you win, you can go halves with us. Since we're
Or buy some more merchandise.
Or buy some more merchandise. Yeah.
There you go.
But yeah, we have a definite full house in effect tonight. And Mike is the man over there with the magic wand.
Yeah,
tonight.
you worry about me
staring at
with
my
the
wand.
wands. Come on.
The tip's lit up, Mike.
It's raw.
I need some cream.
You need
Or maybe a salve.
Yes, I believe you're right. You put some lotion on
Spilled something hot on it.
Spit on
It's
it,
a little
Papa.
sensitive.
it. Put some lotion on the skin. Yeah. All right. Well, since we have a full house and a whole hell of a lot to talk about, let's get this thing started. Me, I'm Steven of Paratalk, and welcome to my semicircle table. And joining me this evening, to my right, the Duke of Hell, Mr. Steve Wiseman.
What's up, everybody?
What's up, buddy?
Living the dream.
I hear ya.
They're sword fighting over
They
here.
are sword fighting over there. To my left, my wand fighting sweet little wife, Miss Andrea Brown.
Hello.
Hello.
He's trying to
Saving
poke
this
me.
guy for last. Straight in front of me, out of the bunker, Mr. Mike Howard. Hello. And to Mike's right, our little oracle, Miss Amy Sharp. Welcome, Amy.
Mike is pointing his wand like perilously close to my nostril. It is in my nostril.
That's how babies are made, people.
I have been violated.
Welcome to the
liked it.
show. And
Hello, Dr. Lewis.
to Mike's left, hailing from somewhere in bumfuck Sevierville, Mr. Elsie Adams.
Hello.
What's happening, buddy?
It was about that time you fucked that bum.
Okay, I'm lost on this.
Your secret's safe with us.
Thank you.
We'll digress. All right, guys. Yeah, as you can tell, we have a full house tonight for sure.
That we do.
For sure. And we're glad to have Elsie with us.
Yes.
This
Yay.
Well, he's tried to come the past 3 weeks, but every time he calls, says, podcast tonight? No, man, it's Saturday.
Yeah.
He's like, shit.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. So, Andrea made plans tomorrow night, so we had to do things tonight. And Elsie was able to make it out and join us.
Yay!
Thank you, Andrea.
So, if you guys are
that bus right over you.
Huh?
what?
I said, do you like how he just drives the bus right over you?
I'm used to it.
Who? Me?
You.
I didn't.
Andrea made plans.
She made plans tomorrow night, so we couldn't do it tomorrow night. So we're doing it tonight.
Thanks, Andrea.
You're welcome.
Beep, 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 beep.
So if you guys are keeping score at home, this is week 3 of serial killers. And if you're not mentally disturbed by now,
Twat.
what?
Is that
What did you call me?
I thought you said twat.
Toi.
I said toi. That's French.
Une de
Bless you.
toi.
Un, deux, trois.
Une de toi, 4, 5, 6.
Bless you.
Quit calling me names.
But yeah, so if you guys are not mentally scarred and disturbed by now, give it 2 more weeks, you will be.
Yep.
Yep.
Just a couple more weeks.
I don't know. Tonight may do it, though.
Tonight's
Tonight
pretty
may push
gruesome.
you over the edge.
Yeah.
Because tonight we're talking the Candyman, the clown, and the cannibals.
Yes!
I mean,
If you're going to kill somebody, why not just go ahead and eat them,
just
too?
Yeah, it's just like hunting, You just don't kill and let corpse lay
Not
there.
just for
you know?
sport.
No.
You're making use of the kill.
Absolutely. Eat what you
And it's
kill.
a great disposal system.
You got to kill them before you eat them?
No.
Not necessarily.
She just
All
might
you
squirm a little
slow-moving
bit.
fuckers, watch out!
so this week, yes, the Candyman, the clown, and the cannibals. It's actually really disturbing.
Yeah.
It's very disturbing.
Right up our
It
alley.
was so much fun putting these podcast notes together.
Andrea actually put the podcast notes together this week.
I
so
did.
So yeah, because I've done the last 2 of these for this subject, and
This subject, yes, because we've only done 2 weeks.
yes, I've done the last 2,
Yes.
and you've done this one to give me a break from more and more and
Putting more
reading.
things in his mind.
Yeah, good God,
giving him ideas.
You can't wash the inside of your head. You
It's
just
okay.
Can't.
It'll be really filthy by the time we're done.
Oh,
Yeah.
Oh, I bet the Candyman, the clown, or the cannibals could figure out a way to do that.
wash the inside of your head. I guarantee it.
Yeah.
I
Only
guarantee
the
it.
ones who really care about cleanliness, though.
Yeah. All right.
Rodents joined us.
Yeah.
Welcome, rodent. So, Andrea,
Yeah.
take us into it.
Well-
Since you wrote that little nifty shit there at the top, you read that little nifty shit there at the top.
I should have used darker font.
Yeah, you should have.
Bigger.
Some of most people's fondest memories of childhood include jelly clowns and candy, right? Well, we're about to discuss 2 specific reasons why we should be more aware of those happier than thou face-painted goons and anyone handing out candy like it's, well, candy.
Good job, Andrea.
You're so
Good
welcome.
job. So, the Candyman, Dean Corll.
Who can take the rain?
I was just thinking that.
Well, you should sing it with me.
Candy.
Rabbit and a smile.
Richard Simmons.
Chop you up and eat your ass, Candyman style.
The Candyman can.
Dean Corll can.
That was awesome, Mike.
Thank
That's
you.
great.
That was
That's why I
awesome.
make the big bucks.
Yes. That's why we pay him in ooey gooey butter cake.
That's true.
So, yeah, Dean Corll.
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 Coral!
Yeah. It's not Rick's son.
All right.
This is Dean.
Coral,
Dean
get your
Corll.
ass back.
But, honestly, before we started researching serial killers, Dean Corll was a name I'd only heard a couple of times. I didn't know much about him, but he's an evil, evil bastard, or was an evil, evil bastard. Mm-hmm. So, Dean Corll, he was all about the young boys.
Yeah.
All about the young boys. He loved them a lot. Some would say he didn't ever want to let them go.
He's a creepy looking fucker.
Yeah. Yeah, he is. Oh, yeah. Creepy looking guy.
He just has that look in his eyes.
Yeah. So, Amy, give us a little background on Dean Corll.
All right.
You can tilt that down towards you so you don't have to bend your face up.
Really? How's
Yeah.
that work?
Right. Just
Mike,
like that.
Mike has strength here.
Yeah.
I don't. Let's see. So, Dean Corll, also known as the Candyman or the Pied Piper, was an American. What the fuck is that word? Phobophilic and hebephilic serial killer, serial rapist, and abductor who perpetrated the so-called Houston mass murders, which at the time of its discovery were considered the worst example of serial killings in the history of the United States. Most of Corll's victims were procured to him by two teenage accomplices, David Brooks and Elmer Wayne Henley, the latter of whom later became Corll's killer. I mean, what kind of fucked up individual do you have to be like, yeah, I'll get you some kids?
I mean,
So-
he had candy.
There ain't, not even chocolate. No, not even chocolate. Corll was born in Fort Wayne, Indiana on December 24th, 1939. He was the first child of Arnold Edwin Corll and Mary Robinson. Corll's parents had frequent arguments and they divorced when he was 7. That same year, he was diagnosed with rheumatic fever and had to renounce physical education. The combined effect of growing up in a broken home with medical difficulties made him a shy boy who rarely socialized with other children, though he still cared for the well-being and feelings of others. Then what twisted him? In 1950, Corll's parents attempted reconciliation and even married again, but they divorced for a second time 3 years later. Corll's mother, who had retained custody over Corll and his younger brother Stanley, remarried to a traveling clock salesman named Jake West and had a third child with him. The family later settled in, is that Vidor? Vidor, Texas. See, you just never know. Vidor, Texas, where they opened a candy-making business named Pecan Price. I'm sorry, I spent some time in Georgia. If you're not from Georgia, it's pecan.
It's pecan.
I was born in Georgia, and it's pecan.
Price. You're not obviously from deep South Georgia, because
I was
down
born
there
in Warner
it's
Robins.
pecan.
Warner Robins.
Yeah.
Pecan's
Not-
the thing you keep behind the desk.
Yeah,
Yes.
that's right.
Gross.
Pecan's what you eat.
Okay. Anyway, my grandparents said pecan. While they were in high school, Corll and Stanley ran the candy-making machine and packed the product while West sold it. The working hours did not bother Corll, who was noted to be a well-behaved student with satisfactory grades. However, he continued to be regarded as a loner by his peers, although he would date girls occasionally. Following Corll's graduation in the summer of 1958, the family moved to Houston, where they sold most of their products, and they opened their own pecan price shop. 2 years later, Corll obeyed his mother's request to return to Indiana and live with his widowed grandmother. There, he dated a local girl. At some point, she proposed to him, but he turned her down. The West-Robinson marriage began to face difficulties in 1962. Corll returned to Houston to help them, but in 1963, the marriage fell apart and they divorced. Robinson opened her own candy business and made Corll vice president. That same year, one of Robinson's teenage male employees complained about Corll making sexual advances towards him, but she simply fired the boy. A year later, Corll was drafted into the U.S. Army and was assigned to Fort Polk, Louisiana, for a 10-month training regime. There, Corll realized that he was a homosexual, and he had his first sexual relations. After being honorably discharged, he returned to work in his mother's company and made advances towards male employees. In 1967, Corll met 12-year-old David Owen Brooks, and the two became close friends. They would go on trips together, and Brooks admired Corll to the point of considering him a substitute father. However, the relationship took a darker turn beginning in 1969 when Corll paid Brooks to perform oral sex on him.
Yeah. Charming guy.
Really charming guy.
So sweet.
Yeah, so there's a documentary that's on Investigation ID. It's called The Clown and the Candyman.
Is Mike in it?
No, Mike's not in that one. But they break down John Wayne Gacy and Dean Corll. And toward the end of it, you see that there may be a connection, and we'll hit on that later on. But they said that Dean Corll, he would, since he had this candy shop, he would go by like the playgrounds and stuff where the little kids were playing, and little kids were like, "Oh, it's the Candyman, it's the Candyman," and they would run up to the fence and he would give them candies. To
gain trust.
To gain trust.
They call that grooming.
Yeah.
Bait.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. But, I mean, he would go out there and he would give these kids candy, gain the trust, and then when they got a few years older, come on over to the house and we'll play, and didn't end very well for him. So, Mike, take us a little deeper into the mind of Dean Corll.
Sure. His modus operandi. Corll targeted males between the ages of 13 and 20, all of whom he would abduct with the help of Brooks and Henley. His victims were either friends of Henley and or Brooks. They were acquainted with Corll or former employees of the Corll Candy Company. Corll would drive them to his house with promises of alcohol or drugs, and once there, they would be stripped naked and tied to a plywood torture board in Corll's bedroom. They were then raped, beaten, and tortured through various means, including rape, sodomy, plucking out their pubic hairs, chewing on their genitals, inserting various objects into their rectums, and putting glass rods in their urethras and smashing them.
What the fuck?
God bless.
What?
Sometimes for several days. Now, when he killed his victims, Corll would usually strangle them or shoot them with a .22 caliber pistol. However, in the case of Jeffrey Conan, he was asphyxiated with a piece of cloth. The bodies were then tied in plastic sheets and buried in one of 3 mass graves beneath Corll's boat shed in southwest Houston, near Lake Sam Rayburn, and in High Island Beach. Occasionally, Corll would force his victims to either call or write letters to their parents explaining their absence, helping the Houston Police Department's assumption that the victims were runaways. He also kept their keys as trophies.
Yeah, and they got him for 29 murders. They have leads that it could be, 76 plus that he actually killed. But I mean, just like with John Wayne Gacy, John Wayne Gacy, after he killed the kids, he would put their bodies in the crawl space, buried them in the crawl space, stacked on top of each other. Corll did the same thing, just in a boat shed, and then on some beach, and then a little spot in the woods, he actually buried a couple. But where Gacy was doing this by himself, Corll had Elmer and
Henley.
Yeah, Henley and Brooks.
Yeah.
To help him go out and pick up boys and bring them back for fun and candy.
And what that documentary really covers well, because you don't really hear it a bunch. If you've only heard, because there's a lot of people out there, I guarantee you, most people out there, especially folks listening to us tonight, you've, for the most part, good bet you've probably heard of John Wayne Gacy.
Oh yeah,
Probably good bet not a lot of you have heard of Dean Corll.
Right.
I actually
knew.
never heard of Dean Corll.
Yeah, unless you and I had heard of Dean Corll, but that's because I growing up in Texas, you knew the name Dean Corll.
Yeah.
You knew about the Houston mass murders, and you knew about Dean Corll. And the thing is the really interesting thing that documentary points out is the fact that Corll kind of led the way for Gacy. Gacy almost was a copycat. Of Corll, because when you look at what Corll did, enticing the age of the men, come back, get alcohol, get drugs. Once they're there, handcuffed, beaten, tortured. Gacy almost did that to the T with every single one of his victims, and then even the body disposal too.
Yeah,
so unoriginal.
He just did it dressed as a clown.
Yeah,
he didn't have the whole candy thing.
Right. He'd give him a balloon.
Yeah.
Wild, wacky, waving arms guy.
And then he'd shove it up their ass.
And
that was the problem.
Right?
Yeah.
But, I mean, he was, like...
sadistic.
Yeah.
Very sadistic. But, I mean, he was like the...
When you're inserting a glass rod into a young man's penis and then breaking it.
Yeah.
It's not bad enough you've already done that. Now you're going to break it.
Yeah. So it's just...
And then torture
Shards
them
of
for
glass.
death. Torture them for days until they finally die.
Yeah.
Probably praying for death.
Yeah. Guarantee it. Guarantee it. Yeah. Ugh.
All right, so Corll's first known murder victim was Jeffrey Conan, a student at the University of Texas in Austin, whom he abducted while hitchhiking on September 25th of 1970. Conan's body was later buried in High Island Beach. Around the time of Conan's murder, Brooks interrupted Corll in the act of raping 2 teenage boys, whom he strapped to a torture board. And Corll promised Brooks a car in return for his silence, and he accepted the offer. Shortly after murdering the boys, Corll bought Brooks a green Chevrolet Corvette. Later, Corll offered $200 to Brooks for any boy he could lure to Corll's apartment. And on December 13th, Brooks lured 2 boys away from a religious rally, and Corll raped and killed them. On January 30th of 1971, Corll and Brooks encountered 2 boys walking home. The boys were lured to Corll's van and driven to his apartment, where they were raped and killed. Their bodies were then buried in a boat shed that he owned. Between March and May, Corll abducted and killed 3 more victims with Brooks's help. On August 17th, Corll and Brooks encountered an acquaintance of Brooks named Reuben Haney walking home from a movie theater, and Corll subsequently took Haney to his home and strangled him to death. In the winter of 1971, Brooks lured Elmer Wayne Henley as a new victim. For reasons unknown, Corll spared him, offered Henley the same fee of $200 for any boy he could lure to Corll's apartment, and told Henley that he was a member of a slavery ring. Henley ignored Corll's offer for several months, but he finally accepted it in early 1972, when Henley's family were in dire financial circumstances. On March 24th of 1972, the trio encountered an acquaintance of Henley's, Frank Aguirre, when he was leaving a restaurant. They convinced Aguirre to come to Corll's apartment with the promise of drinking beer and smoking marijuana. There, Corll pushed him onto the table and handcuffed him. When he saw it, Henley attempted to persuade Corll not to hurt Aguirre. Instead, he killed him. Then revealed that there was no human slavery ring in there, that he had also raped and murdered the previous boy that Henley had lured for him. Henley then followed Corll's instructions and buried Aguirre's body in High Island Beach. However, according to Brooks, Henley was a sadistic individual who enjoyed murdering boys on his own.
Yeah, so not only was he using Henley and Brooks to go out and get these guys and bring them back, he'd go out and do it by himself. You know, I mean, he didn't need the help.
No.
But, yeah.
And it makes you wonder why. Why did he seek help? Just to get more?
Yeah, I think
And to maybe avoid the...
He's not out in the public doing it. They don't see him, kids getting into his white van.
Well, and I guess it would make sense that, it would be more common to see other teenage boys walking with other teenage boys
Right.
as opposed to a grown man with a teenage boy. So,
Yeah.
Well, and some of these guys just get off on being a puppet master.
it's true.
Yeah.
All right. The murder spree continued until August 7th, 1973. Henley, now age 17, invited Timothy Curley to attend a party at Corll's house. Curley accepted the offer, but as they were headed home, they were joined by Rhonda Williams, a friend of Curley's. Williams' father was drunk, and he attacked her that evening, so she decided to wait outside until he sobered up. Henley took pity on Williams and invited her to Corll's home. Corll was initially furious about Henley bringing a girl to his house, but later calmed down after Henley told him about Williams' father and how she could not return home. And he offered the trio beer and marijuana. They drank and smoked while Corll watched them and waited for them to pass out. Henley awoke to find himself gagged while Corll snapped handcuffs onto his wrists. The still unconscious Williams and Curley were strapped next to him in the same manner. Noticing that Henley was awake, Corll removed the gag and said that he was going to kill them all because of Williams. Henley then promised to Corll that he would participate in the torture and murder of both Curley and Williams if Corll released him, to which he agreed. The two dragged Curley and Williams to Corll's bedroom and strapped them to the board. Corll handed Henley a hunting knife and told him to cut Williams' clothes, insisting that he rape and kill Williams entirely by himself while he was occupied with Curley. By this point, both Curley and Williams had awoken. Henley removed Williams' gag and began to cut her clothes, prompting her to ask, "Is this for real?" When Henley said yes, Williams asked him, "Are you going to do anything about it?" This caused Henley to question his actions under Corll's orders for the first time. He first asked Corll if he could take Williams to another room, but he ignored him. Henley then grabbed Corll's pistol and shouted that they had gone too far and that they had to stop. Corll left Curley and yelled at Henley to kill him. Panicking, Henley stepped back as Corll advanced and taunting him, saying, "You won't do it." Henley then fired once at Corll, hitting him in the forehead, but the bullet failed to penetrate his skull. Corll continued to lurch towards Henley, and he fired 2 more shots, hitting Corll in the left shoulder. Corll then spun around and exited the room, hitting the wall of the hallway. Henley followed him and fired 3 more times into his back, killing him. Henley freed Curley and Williams, and they discussed what to do. Henley just wanted to leave, but Curley convinced him to call the police and explain what happened. Once in custody, Henley confessed to Brooks's and his own involvement in Corll's murders and revealed the locations where the bodies had been buried. The police used unqualified convict labor to dig up the bodies, and the search was abruptly ended when their body count just surpassed 25, the number of victims attributed to Juan Corona, who was considered the most prolific American serial killer up to that point. As a result, the total number of Corll's victims remains unknown, and some of his attributed 29 victims were known only from spare bones that did not match any retrieved bodies. Henley was later indicted for and found guilty of 6 murders. Brooks, who attempted to portray himself as a silent partner of Corll and Henley's who was not present for any rapes and murders, was indicted for 4 murders and found guilty of 1. Both accomplices were sentenced to life in prison. Henley is currently incarcerated at the Mark W. Michael unit of Anderson County, Texas, while Brooks was incarcerated at the Ramsey unit near Rosharon. He later died on May 28th, 2020 from COVID at age 65.
Wow. So he kills Corll, and he, from the documentary, they said that him and the kids, they go in there sitting outside. They call the cops. They're sitting outside on the curb. Cops show up. They go in. They find Corll in the hallway dead, naked and dead. And the boy proceeds to call. They get him a phone. He calls his mom, tells his mom, "I killed Dean. I killed Dean." And his mom's like, "What have you done? What have you done?" And at that point, he pretty much that's all he says. He doesn't tell them anything about all the other boys and all this other stuff. Brooks went down to the police department the very next day and came clean with the police and told them everything. Told them that they had killed these boys, and that him and Henley had gone out and picked up boys and brought them back to Corll's house for Corll to rape and to murder, and took them to the boathouse where the boys were buried, took them to the beach where the boys were buried, and then took them to a spot in the woods where they had buried, I think, 1 or 2 people there. Yeah, he was trying to do the right thing. He was coming clean. Conscience weighed on him, and he was coming clean. He may not have had anything to do with the murders and the rape, but
Still an accessory.
yeah.
Well, there was a lot of, in fact, probably still going on to this day. Because I remember growing up in Austin. I had an aunt and uncle lived in Houston, and they lived near a neighborhood called the Heights in Houston. The Heights are where a lot of these boys were from, and where Henley and Brooks were both known to spend a lot of time.
Right.
Up until 2017, there were still old houses, old 1930s and 40 style bungalows. There was actually a house that they were renovating. They tore up one of the walls and found skeletal remains inside the house. So there was always talk about, because he was charged with 29, I think, is what they ended up charging him with posthumously. But the number of 76 or more, they really think was more likely. In fact, they think that Henley and Brooks probably had a lot more to do with some of the murders and actually on their own buried some of their own friends and people they hung out with in some various locations throughout the Heights. And there's always been talk throughout the Heights that there's bodies buried all over, not only in yards in the Heights, but in some of the houses and under some of the houses and in some of the walls and places in some of these older houses in the Heights in Houston.
You bring that up, and up here in the chat room, Betsy Boo had commented a minute ago. She said, I always wonder if people like this ever get haunted by their victims, especially the ones whose remains are on their property or died on it, or when they take something as a trophy. Like, I would hope these guys' victims haunted the shit out of them since they died in his house. And,
I hope so.
Andrea and I were just talking about this today. We were talking, Gacy's house got torn down. I was like, I wonder if anyone was ever allowed to rebuild on that property. And if they did, were the people that were inhabiting this property now, were they
made aware of that?
Were they made aware of it, or are they being haunted by these kids that were tortured and murdered on this property? It makes you wonder. Those kids went through hell the last hours of their lives. And they were laid to rest in a crawl space covered in lime and acids to help them decompose quickly and without a strong scent. And they would just lay another body on top of it and lay another body on top of it. That's no place to rest.
No.
That's the makings for a restless spirit.
That's the makings of a really good scary movie.
Yeah, you're exactly right. Yeah. There's actually a couple movies, horror movies on Gacy. There's, what was it?
But not necessarily about
this.
About these particular people, but,
that situation.
Yes.
Yeah.
Actually, I think there is a movie about that. People buried in the walls.
That was Haunted in Connecticut.
Was that it?
Yeah.
People under the stairs.
That too.
That was a good one.
So
the people behind you.
The other shoulder.
Well, it's like Dahmer's former apartment, the Oxford Apartments.
Yeah.
They tore those down in, 1993?
93, 94, somewhere in there.
It's still a chained up, overgrown piece of land. They refuse to build anything on that property.
For good reason.
Yeah.
And so it's like, I don't know about the Gacy property. I don't know if, you don't, there's not much land available in Chicago, so are they going to just say, okay, we're going to fence this off and no one can ever live here again?
Plant some trees.
Yeah. So
there is a house on John Wayne Gacy's former property, and as of last year, it was for sale.
Makes you wonder. Makes you wonder how many times it's been sold since the house was built.
And how many
Because
times it will
It's $500,000. It was $500,000 home that was put on the property.
Damn.
Wow.
Jeez.
Wow. Yeah, because, I mean, I don't think I could sleep well at night hearing the screams of those young boys. No. Because...
Here's the strange thing. The people that were selling it, it was an unnamed trust. Whoever owned the house was an unnamed trust, and it didn't identify any homeowner. It was just for sale in Cook County under an unnamed trust.
I wonder if it was still in Gacy's name and they...
I doubt it, because the house was built in 88, I think they said. Yeah, it was built in 88, so it was built...
They
Well,
probably
he was-
didn't want anybody to know who they were.
Yeah, probably didn't.
Makes sense.
Because that was, I mean, it was the house. Apparently, it sat. It after they tore everything down, it sat for almost 10 years before they built anything on it.
Wow.
Because it was torn down in 89 or 79.
79.
79.
Yeah.
It wasn't until 88 that they built it.
Yeah.
Somebody went, ooh, that's a great piece of property.
Yeah, probably not.
Why would there be no house already here? Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
I'm going to buy this property
I
and
don't
build
believe
on
in
it.
all that haunting stuff.
Why is this ground so mushy? Too soon?
Yeah.
Sorry. But anyway, don't forget about Dean Corll, because we're not done talking about Dean Corll. Even though right now, at this point, we're going to move on to John Wayne Gacy. Don't forget about Dean Corll, because we're coming right back. So, who wants to take John Wayne Gacy?
I will. Either one. So, John Wayne Gacy, a.k.a. the Killer Clown, was an American
Could you say that a little more aggressive?
The Killer Clown.
There you go.
Was an American ephebophilic and necrophilic serial killer, serial rapist, and abductor. Gacy was raised by an abusive alcoholic father who referred to him as Sissy and a passive mother. He was close to his sisters and his mother, who called him Johnny. After attending 4 different high schools, Gacy dropped out before completing his senior year and cut off all contact with his family, heading west. After running out of money in Las Vegas, Nevada, Gacy lied about his age and applied for a job as an ambulance driver at the Palm Mortuary Memorial Park, for which the minimum age was 21. When the staff learned the truth, they terminated Gacy's employment as a driver, but offered him an alternative post as a mortuary assistant, in which he would move corpses and material from the hospital to the funeral home. Because Gacy could not afford lodgings with his new pay, he was also allowed to sleep at night in the premises, a fact that would cause considerable speculation of necrophilia when his crimes were discovered years later. Gacy was shown how the bodies were cleaned, treated, and embalmed at night. When everyone else left, he would pull out the drawers and examine the bodies, talk to them, and undress them, neatly folding their clothes next to the caskets. This lasted until the director became suspicious and called the police one day. Though Gacy was not identified as the culprit, he began to save money for the return trip to Chicago and quit 3 months later. Without returning to high school, he enrolled in and eventually graduated from Northwestern Business College in 1963. A management trainee position with the Nunn Bush Shoe Company followed shortly after graduation, and in 1964, Gacy was transferred to Springfield, Illinois. There he met co-worker Marlon Myers, and they married in September of that year. He became active in local Springfield organizations, joining the JCs and rising to vice president of the Springfield chapter by 1965. Gacy would later become involved in political activism, construction, and several other fields, all while racking up minor criminal charges. In 1975, Gacy created the character Pogo the Clown, which he used to support himself. His habit of wearing the costume at charity events and parties later led to him being nicknamed the Killer Clown. During this time, his involvement in politics eventually landed him clearance by the U.S. Secret Service. Shortly thereafter, he would begin his murders. He started with a young juvenile named Tim McCoy, whom he allegedly killed in self-defense. He soon murdered a coworker named John Butkovich. After many years of murdering, Gacy...
I said, God bless you.
After many years of murdering, Gacy was eventually apprehended in Des Plaines following the disappearance of 15-year-old Robert Priest, who was last seen with Gacy. The police obtained a search warrant for Gacy's home, where they discovered a powerful odor and numerous items belonging to other missing young men. Authorities then suspected Gacy of murder and would soon obtain a search warrant. The second search would target the crawl space, in which police ripped up the floorboards and began to dig into the earth of the crawl space. During the search, police found human bones buried in the soil of the crawl space, and at that point, they placed Gacy under arrest for murder. Gacy would admit to 25 to 30 murders in the 1970s. When police searched his home, the remains of at least 29 people were found buried in various places. The other remaining victims were found in the Des Plaines River. And during his trial, and in order to lessen his sentence, Gacy began telling officials and prosecutors that he had an alter ego personality named Jack, who was responsible for the murders. Psychiatric evaluations proved the claim to be false, and later in an interview on death row shortly before his execution, Gacy claimed himself to be the 34th victim, as he was innocent and had no involvement with the murders and subsequent burials. Gacy claimed that his employees set him up. This proved to be false, as he had already claimed responsibility for the murders of the young men years prior. It is reported that Gacy killed 33 young men between 1972 and 1978. He is also known to have raped 2 males of the same age, one in 1968 and one in May of 1978, both of whom were left alive. The 9 unidentified victims were all buried in individual graves with headstones reading, "We are remembered." Gacy was later found guilty of his crimes and sentenced to execution by lethal injection at Stateville Prison at Crest Hill, Illinois, on May 10th of 1994. When asked whether he had any last words during his execution, he reportedly snarled, "Kiss my ass." He was then executed, aged 51.
All right. So instead of reading the MO, we all know what Gacy did.
He killed people.
Very good, Andrea. Very good. We're going to talk about everything he did. And so, okay, Gacy started out, he would go to like bus stations and he would pick up guys, and he would pick up male prostitutes, take them to his house and offer to pay for sex with them or give them a job in his construction company. And he would have sex with them and then kill them. The relationship between Gacy and Corll. We talked about how Gacy was basically a Corll copycat. Corll had this trick that he would do. It was a handcuff trick. He would put the handcuffs on himself and he would get out of them. And then he would give them to the boys, have them, "Hey, here, Steve, put these handcuffs on. Put them on.
Click, click.
See if you can get out of them."
Oh, no, please don't fuck me my ass.
Wrong. I'm fucking you in your ass.
That was
But-
horrible. So bad.
But
I knew there was something weird about you guys.
I felt like I was really there. Though.
Didn't you? Yeah, I did. I did too.
Great acting skills.
Yeah.
Fantastic acting skills.
could you feel
but
the fear?
I just feel
I'm worried.
Yeah.
We're fearful for both of you, and especially for Andrea. Just saying.
Yeah.
She lives with y'all.
Yeah.
This might be a stupid question,
Yeah.
but my 50-year-old brain was the movie It. Was that pretty much based on Gacy? You know, if you think about it, luring young boys.
I mean, I'm sure there was.
I'm sure there's
What
some
was the
maybe some
association with the
influence.
fear.
What was
With the fear of the clown.
When did it come out?
Stephen King wrote it in early 80s.
Yeah,
early 80s. And all this shit, Gacy went to prison in the 70s. So I'm sure that, the fear of clowns because of Pogo the Clown, who John Gacy portrayed, and then Pennywise, the the fear of clowns. You know, that pretty much started that, you know, with John Wayne Gacy. You know, because the clowns, like you said in the opening that you wrote, you know, you associate clowns with birthday parties and with the circus and rodeos and all this, and not with someone that's going to kill you or put handcuffs on you and what, Steve?
Fuck you in the ass.
That's exactly right. But
Betsy Boo says, you know, she thinks she's actually heard that before, that Pennywise was based off of Gacy.
I mean, it makes sense. It totally does.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I mean, he would do this, you know, he would put the handcuffs on them and then he would torture them. You know, he didn't have the other boys going out and picking his victims for him. He was out roaming the streets, you know, and the thing about Gacy was he was pretty much fearless. You know, he didn't think he was going to get caught ever.
He didn't care.
No.
No, the cops didn't bother him a bit.
Not a bit.
Well, because if you remember, I mean, he was involved in so much.
Oh yeah, the Democratic Party.
He was a married person, and he was involved in all these organizations.
Graduated from Northwestern Business College.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he wasn't what, you know, the cops would be like, "Oh, you look sketchy. I
Right.
need to follow you." No, they'd be like, "Oh, he's doing such a good job. Look at that clown. He's so funny."
But I mean, the thing when the cops started taking notice, you know, when things started falling into place, and they were like, "We're going to follow him." You know, they would follow him all over town. They would sit outside his house and stake out his house, waiting for him to leave to see if he would go pick up another boy and bring him back. And you know, it was, and I think the documentary, they said that, you know,
It got to the
Gacy-
point where they would sit out so long that he would notice, and he'd be all like waving
well, he'd wave as he drove by.
as he drove by,
You
like,
know,
"Hey."
he had no fear of
Well,
being
he invited some of the cops into his house for dinner one night.
Yes, and that's what got him busted.
Which was his downfall, because
Yeah.
they smelled decay in his house, and
Yeah.
they said one of the cops walked around for the whole time he was in the house, and then after he left, he realized what the smell was.
He's like,
It was
"I
the
smell
same smell."
death.
He said it was the same smell he got when he was in the morgue.
Yeah, he's like, "I smell death." But
See,
I mean,
Gacy became used to that smell.
Yeah.
You know, and
yeah,
the lime just didn't work well enough.
he would. You know, the cops said that they would follow him into a bar and they would sit over under the table. Gacy would buy drinks for him.
Send drinks over to him.
You know, and send drinks over to him, and then come up to him and talk to him. And they all said he was a super nice guy. Super nice guy.
I mean, what better way to
Protect yourself and cover yourself.
throw them off of your trail
He
than
was
to be
very well known throughout Chicago.
Yeah.
He was basically almost like a burgeoning politician.
Yeah.
He held a lot of different offices. He was
Did a lot of charity
did
work.
especially as Pogo the Clown. He performed
Yeah.
at kids' parties. Not making money. He did it as a service to the children.
Oh,
And
that's
at
what he
night-
wanted people
yeah.
to think was a
And then at
service
night
to
he's
the
back
children.
raping and killing young men and burying their bodies in his crawl space.
Mm-hmm.
And what's scary, you then jump ahead to Ted Bundy.
Mm-hmm.
Bundy was a very well-known Republican, a young Republican member of the party, and
Mm-hmm.
was active as. So it's almost that some of these guys, it's one of two things. It's either that extreme, almost like hermit-like life,
Mm-hmm.
like Dahmer.
Yep.
Not a lot of friends. They don't really know what's going on. They're by themselves. Oh, they were so quiet. We had no idea. Or they go the complete opposite way. And it's this
Active
brazen
member of society.
Yeah, look at me. I'm this perfect person. Or I'm just this outrageous, like Ramirez. Here, I'm going to go and do all this, and there's nothing you can do to stop me.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not even going to try to hide anything. You can do whatever. I can get away with whatever I want.
Mm-hmm.
There doesn't seem to be that.
That middle ground.
There's not a
Yeah.
middle ground there. It's either one or the other.
Yeah. And, you know, back to the copycat part, the rack. Corll had designed this rack that is a board with holes drilled in it that he had rope going through, and would have the boys put their hands up in the rope. He'd cinch it down in the back where they couldn't move. They couldn't squirm, making it do their legs the same way. They're strapped to this board, which made it easy for him to shove the glass rods up their penis, and shatter it, and all the horrible things that he did. I mean,
I don't have one. It hurts me.
I know.
it's horrible. It's horrible to think about. And Gacy, he had his own rack. He did the handcuff trick that he learned from the stuff that he had read about Corll. He actually said that. Oh, where's it at here?
Was he still married during this time? Do we know?
No, he was divorced.
Okay, because I'm thinking,
How would she not know?
right? He didn't have a basement, so he was doing this either just got it set up in his living room or something.
But he actually bragged.
What's that? It's don't worry about it.
Yeah.
It's a cornhole table.
It's the paper boy. Just shh. He's taking a break.
Yeah. It's the cornhole table. Good God.
Lord forgive him.
Oh, my God. Oh. But no, Gacy actually stated and bragged that he had actually killed more than Corll. Corll got the 29. Gacy got 33. The copycat did more than the original. And he bragged about that. And then years later tries to say, "Oh, I didn't do it." Yeah, I didn't do it.
Corll's house is still standing, by the way. You can still walk up and there's somebody that lives in it. The house that he was killed in, where there were 6 bodies buried, that house is still standing in the Heights in Pasadena, Texas.
Wow. See, I want to talk to those people. Yeah. I want to talk to those people and see if they have experienced anything.
Let me call him for you.
Call him. Holy shit. I live in Pasadena, Texas. That
was from last year.
Wow. It was pretty eerie. Holy shit. Wow.
Dude.
Insane. Yeah. So that house is still standing. But
they got a deal on it.
Well, here's the thing. This is the weird thing. Now, in Chicago, because I was reading that thing about the Gacy house, in Illinois, real estate agents are not required by law to have to tell anybody if there was a murder or any death in the house. So they don't have to tell whoever buys that house. They are not under any assumption to have to tell them, "Hey, by the way, this used to be on the location where Gacy had his house." They don't have to do that. In Texas, you do. You have to tell somebody if. So
yeah.
Well, no, you're supposed to.
Up front.
You're supposed to disclose it. You're supposed to disclose it at the signing.
Is that like those
season if they ask?
Yeah.
those signs that you've seen on those little memes that have like not haunted?
Yeah.
On the
In Texas, when you go your final closing, they're supposed to disclose it. So one of the pieces of paper. Oh, by the way, you do know this house that you're buying. So the people that have bought that house have signed a piece of paper that's saying they are fully aware that Dean Corll was killed in this house, and there were 6 bodies buried in this house at one time. They went, yeah, sure, that's good.
Yeah.
But the square footage.
It's so pretty.
There's so many windows.
Did you see the cornhole table?
It's already built in there. Wow.
Timmy, come here. I want to teach you cornhole.
Put your hand in the straps.
In the strap.
Oh my God.
I've never known cornhole like this before. Just wait.
So horrible.
So
You don't laugh.
So while Gacy was in prison, he was actually befriended by a guy named Randy White. Randy White was this fella. He wasn't a reporter. He wasn't an investigator. He was this guy that his friend gave a book to, a book about the Gacy murders. Inside the book, it actually had Gacy's cell number. So what's Randy do? Randy writes him a letter.
Why'd you do what you did?
I gave you my damn cell number. Why'd you write me?
So Randy writes him a letter, and they start talking. Gacy writes him back, the letters turned into phone calls. And, I'm sure Gacy didn't know that Randy was recording every phone call that they had. And if you watch The Clown and the Candyman, you get to hear some of the audio from those phone calls. And this is where the Corll and Gacy thing comes together a little more. Gacy gave Randy a name. He's like, see if you can find out info on this guy. The guy was John David Norman. John David Norman, he was the head of a nationwide procurement ring for homosexuals. When he got busted the first time, they went in there and they found index cards in boxes, like recipes, with information, each card, information on a certain boy between the ages of 14 and 20, and all of his info that they could sell out to you.
It's like a Dewey Decimal System for young men.
Pedophilia.
It was a library.
Yeah.
Yeah. And he started, back then, we didn't have the internet. So they did newsletters. He had this newsletter called the Odyssey Foundation. And is basically listings of kids for rent for sexual pleasures.
What the fuck is wrong with people?
Yeah.
Seriously.
So much.
So,
What's even more frightening is that it's all online now.
yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's easier access right
And
now.
so my drama coach in high school, he said he ended his introduction by saying that he wanted us all to be safe and to remember, because a girl had been abducted like right before we started school, and he said piracy has never gone away.
Yeah.
It's just changed a little
Yeah.
bit.
Yeah. So,
I'll never forget that.
it's scary.
It is.
It's terrifying. If you remember earlier, Henley or Corll had told Henley that he was part of a pedophile ring. John David Norman's pedophile ring. Well, Corll goes back to jail again, and he meets this guy, Philip Pansky. Pansky and Corll developed this relationship, and they're running this shit from inside the walls of the prison. Pansky gets out.
No, Norman met.
Yeah, Norman met. And so Pansky gets out. He actually meets John Wayne Gacy, goes to work for his construction company.
No such thing as coincidence.
Huh?
There's no such thing as coincidence.
No. Then while he's out, Paskey. Yeah. He opens up a new newsletter going away from the Odyssey Foundation because everyone already knew about it, and changed it to the Delta Project, which was the exact same thing, just different name. Where these guys can get these boys information and say, I want him. Just like ordering off a menu. I want him.
And you know what is terrifying is that, they ended up letting Norman out.
Mm-hmm.
And what does he do? He moves and starts all over again.
Yeah.
He never stopped.
No, he never stopped until he died.
Never stopped. But it was a constant, a shift. He'd moved from place to place, but it would he just kept rebuilding what he had already had.
Mm-hmm.
And it was...
Well, like when Gacy was talking to White, he said that, all this stuff, he goes, if I had done all the things they said that I've done, I would have never slept. He said, I would have been doing this 24 hours a day. I would have never slept. He's like, it wasn't just me. I didn't do all this, And he said that he would have parties, for these guys. These guys could get these boys that they get off the freaking Delta Project and bring them back to his house. And he would leave, and they would have their party, and these boys would wind up dead and buried in his crawl space.
I mean, how convenient that all these random guys came to Gacy's house, and they all just happened to kill the kid that they were with, and just so happened to bury them all in the same area of the house. I mean, coincidence, I'm telling you.
Oh, yeah.
But watching that documentary, when they started talking to that Randy White, to me, my personal opinion, Gacy was brainwashing this fucker.
Oh, God, yeah.
Because the more you heard him talk and, the things that he was playing, and, I mean, it's like he was becoming Gacy almost, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And
he was totally falling into that web.
Yeah.
well,
yeah.
and White even said, he mentioned that Gacy was like trying to convince him that he wasn't the one that committed the murders. And he turned around and he said, well, we know that he killed, but did he kill all of these people? Maybe not. Well,
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I mean,
Well, Gacy kept trying to say that Paskey was the one that did it.
Yeah.
well,
Paskey
yeah.
was burying the bodies under his crawl
Yeah.
space without his knowledge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
But the thing is,
When he actually confessed to all these other ones. Sorry, dude.
And another thing that caught me funny in the documentary was toward the end when, after they had executed Gacy, they're talking to Randy White. He's like, they killed him and I didn't shed a tear.
Like he was supposed to or something.
He's like, I didn't shed a tear. He goes, maybe that was wrong.
And
how could I miss someone like that?
on
You
a
know, I'm
side
like,
note,
were you crushing on him?
Right.
Yeah,
Who
that's what it
else-
sounds like.
on a side note, who else finds that it should not be legal for inmates to be able to sell paintings to cover the cost of their
Their
lawyers?
attorney fees and all that. Yeah, because John Wayne Gacy was making a killing.
Yeah, he was. He had two art shows.
He's the reason
Three,
they
four.
created the law.
Yeah.
What law?
You can't profit from that anymore.
Good.
Yeah. Say that again on a mic.
You can no longer profit from sales of your art or your story or anything as an inmate. You cannot, because of John Wayne Gacy. I can't remember what the name of the law is that they enacted, but it was because he was making money hand over fist, just like drawing clowns or whatever.
Yeah, he was drawing like self-portraits
And
of Pogo.
families went to court over it, and a law was enacted. You cannot make a profit off of anything you do anymore.
Yeah, because, I mean, he was talking to Randy White on the phone. He's like, he goes, I've got a showing in New Orleans. I've got a showing in Philadelphia. And then he had like 2 overseas,
I mean,
You're getting all this money. I mean, okay, I ain't gonna lie. It would be awesome just to have one of those paintings just to have
in the garage.
in the garage because you wouldn't let me bring it in the house.
No.
But
No.
But, just because of the clown thing. And the funny thing, like when we were watching this documentary, there's a clown painting
That was over his bed.
that was over his bed.
My uncle had the exact same painting when we were growing up.
Yeah. It's this creepy looking clown. It was his uncle that had passed. Well, it was your, not uncle, but uncle.
Yeah,
The one that Stephanie had made
It
contact
did the
with.
reading
Yes.
on me, yes.
Yeah.
Well, he was actually a talented artist.
Oh, yeah.
They have some art in the Alcatraz Museum.
Really?
Yeah, Chuck and I went for my birthday. They have some of
You
his
went to
art.
Alcatraz?
Yeah, well, the museum, Alcatraz East. I've been to Alcatraz, though, the real one.
You suck.
I know.
I'm just saying. But they do have some of his art, and they have 2 of his clown costumes.
Wow.
Yeah, as well as the leather jacket that he was wearing when he was arrested.
Wow.
Yeah. I highly recommend it.
Yeah,
The
definitely
serial
wanna go.
killer wing did not go nearly into enough, but it's a very interesting place. You can, I would say, plan to spend the whole day
Nice.
because most people, it says, takes 2 to 3 hours. And Chuck and I, we had an appointment to go to another museum, and we were like, can we come back after we go this other place? And they were like, no, it's one entry only. Sorry. And we were like, damn it.
So before
Apparently, that museum also has Charles Manson's acoustic guitar.
Yes.
nice.
Because
They have some of his work over in Alcatraz East too. Pigeon Forge.
That's Gacy's painting.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, he was a very talented artist.
Well, look at the clown up.
Yeah.
That's it.
Well, here's the crazy thing. So you were talking about the Dignity of Crime Victims Act of 2010.
Yes.
That was the federal bill to try to stop the sale of murderabilia. It died in committee. It's actually still it's banned in 5 states: Texas, California, New Jersey, Michigan, and Utah. But federally, they can still make money.
But all right, before we go to break, real quick, Elsie, you've been
Yes.
super quiet during all this. I know you're taking it all in.
Yes.
So, give us your thoughts on Gacy and Corll. I mean, we all know they're both evil bastards, you know. And we've talked in the last weeks how someone can actually do this shit. You know, how can you be so fucked up in the head that you can commit these crimes as gruesome and hideous as they are? And we found out a whole lot about that, and the whole frontal lobe damage, and trauma to the head, and lacking love as a child, and all this goes toward this person becoming this murderer. But I'm sure growing up you heard of Gacy. Did it affect you where you were like, fuck clowns, screw that shit, I mean,
No, we heard about it,
yeah,
but I mean, it was like news. It was on, it was gone.
right.
I mean, they didn't.
So-
Nobody talked about it. What a big thing. Where I'm from.
Right.
He had the Mothman to worry about up there.
Yeah.
Well, there you go. I
Yeah.
heard more about that than anything else.
Yeah.
Even to this day, they still.
Oh yeah, they
talk
got
about it,
the
especially the older ones.
yeah, and they've got the Mothman Festival every year, which I would
we're
love to
going
go to.
one of these days.
Josh Bender, him and Justin Brown, both they go every year that they have that. But definitely got to go up there for the Mothman Festival.
But no, like you were saying, I mean, a lot of it has to do with their growing up, the way they were treated, things like that. Experience as a child, our babysitter, she was Mexican, married to a American white man, whole 9 yards. But they had 2 children, Ronnie and Maria. Maria's close to my age, a year or 2 older. Ronnie, I think 10, 15, maybe 20 years older. And he was arrested in Cleveland, Ohio. After they arrested him and everything, before he was murdered in prison, they asked him, why. And it all went back to his dad didn't care for him, showed more affection to the daughter, and everything else. And, he done quite a
number.
Up on the internet as the Cleveland Park rapist in Cleveland, Ohio.
Really?
Wow.
Raped quite a few women and went back a couple times and raped them again when they were pregnant and when they wasn't pregnant.
Oh my
Wow.
gosh.
Wow.
Grew up with him.
Holy crap, man.
So when, talking about that, I mean, it psychological, messed up.
Yeah.
But I to do
That's
I think I need another ride home.
Some of the stuff, these guys are doing, with boys and girls, either or, it's not right. But,
right.
It's something very loose.
Yeah. Yeah.
We did a story there I think it might have been last week, where this guy did research, took scans of human brains that are missing the cerebral cortex.
Yeah, damage to the cerebral cortex.
The frontal lobe of the brain, and that played a big part in what I believe, after seeing the documentary and reading the research.
Yeah, totally does. But yeah, anyway, those are disgusting guys.
Yeah.
Gacy and Corll. Disgusting guys.
Corll, get away from that cornhole board!
Oh my God. So, on that, let's take a quick break, and we come back. We're going to talk about
some tasteless things.
So,
Tasty.
get a drink. Need something to wash it down with. We'll be right back.
So many people spend hundreds or even thousands of dollars on that perfect infrared camera, hoping to catch that epic paranormal shot or simply to document their nighttime escapades, only to pair it up with an IR illuminator that gives off a hotspot in the center of the frame and performs subpar for their camera's capabilities. We did the same thing. Let me save you some time and money spent on multiple IR lights with one name, Deadlight. Created from the minds of Josh Bender and Justin Brown, who are also paranormal investigators, the Deadlight is the elite light to add to your camera arsenal. We have tested the Deadlight and illuminated areas up to 300 feet away. Did I mention these lights are built like a tank? Super durable and sturdy construction. Josh builds each Deadlight to meet your needs and is in constant contact during the building process. So forget the other lights out there and go straight to the best. You can check out the complete line of Deadlights on Facebook at Deadlight LLC. Justin and Josh are constantly exploring new features to add to the Deadlights. ETGS will never use another light in the field, simply because nothing else compares. Get your Deadlight today and you too can light up the night.
You're listening to Parrot Talk with East Tennessee Ghost Seekers, a new perspective in paranormal talk radio.
Looking for a way to get your paranormal fix in the spring? How about joining us at the 2021 Screamfest Paranormal Festival at the historic Cleve Mansion? Presented by the Scream Chamber Haunted Attraction, located at 1163 Highway 11 North in Athens, Tennessee, 37303. With nearly 200 years of death and murder inside its walls, the mansion contains an abundance of paranormal activity. The festival is scheduled for Saturday, March 27th from 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. Vendors and special guests in the paranormal field will be on site for the festival. So come by and take a daytime history tour of the mansion, hang out and bring your questions to the guests, and enjoy some food from the vendors. When darkness falls, get your scare on inside the mansion's haunted attraction. The haunted house will be open Friday and Saturday night, March 26th and 27th for all you thrill seekers. If you are interested in being a vendor or special guest at the Screamfest Paranormal Festival, please contact the Scream Chamber at gmail.com. Join us in making this event one that will grow into something everyone will be talking about. This event will follow all COVID-19 guidelines, so rest easy knowing you can come out and enjoy some thrilling, safe, and scary fun.
You're listening to Parrot Talk. If you have a question or an experience to share, email us at etgsparrottalk@gmail.com or call 865-264-0448. And now, back to Parrot Talk.
All right, guys, we're back. And I just want to give a shout out to Dead Paranormal Society. He said he's actually going to plug us on his podcast tomorrow night. Thank you so much. And you guys check out Dead Paranormal Society. It's DEAD Paranormal Society. So, all right, guys. Now we're going to get tasteless.
Proud of you. You spelled that.
I did.
That's because he was reading it.
I was reading it, yeah. and he's got periods after each letter. DEAD. It's not like...
after what we've been talking about, how do you feel about getting plugged?
Yeah.
Corll, get away from the cornhole! Damn it, Corll!
So, on to cannibals.
What was that?
Cannibals.
Finger looking good.
I like their soup.
No, that's
That's
Campbell's.
Campbell's.
That's Campbell's.
Oh, okay, okay,
Different.
okay.
Not
I
cannibals.
misunderstood.
Cannibals. Nothing comes closer to home.
Oh, man.
Nothing like some good cannibal soup on a nice cold day.
You going to eat that finger?
Cannibal Hot Pocket.
All right, so...
Hey, Howard, where's my thigh?
Oh, my God. Oh, fuck.
In all seriousness, cannibals are disgusting and they're not funny.
No, they're not. Especially number one on our list.
Yes.
Who wants to take... Mike Howard. Take number one on our list.
This is a name that has actually... I remember reading about it when I was a kid, and it scared the fuck out of me. And if you have the Tubi app, you can actually watch a very disturbing documentary about this man and about how he basically based all of his murders off of some freaky bending of biblical prophecy. Oh, it's disgusting. Albert Fish, Hamilton Howard Albert Fish, was an American serial killer. However, he was mainly known as the Gray Man, the Werewolf of Wisteria, the Brooklyn Vampire, the Moon Maniac, and the Boogie Man. Yes, this twisted man that had multiple names for the disgusting crimes he's committed. As a child rapist and a cannibal, he actually boasted that he had, quote, children in every state. Fish was a suspect in at least 5 murders during his lifetime. Yes, just 5. Out of the 100 that he's counted, he confessed to 3 murders that police were able to trace to a known homicide. Fish also confessed to stabbing at least 2 other people. However, his biggest trial was for the kidnapping and murder of Gracie Budd. After kidnapping her, he strangled her to death, chopped her up, ate her body within just 9 days. He was executed by the electric chair in 1936. And that doesn't even scratch the surface of the absolute depravity of what was Albert Fish.
Yeah.
No, and it's the sad thing is that he was just he was a suspect in at least 5 murders, because if you eat your victims, it's kind of hard to track them down.
Yeah.
I mean, how is there proof?
Corpus delicti. There is no body to produce.
Exactly.
And the crazy thing is, the more you read, if you literally want to give yourself nightmares, just Google Albert Fish and just read about it. He is
Disgusting.
horribly, horribly, horribly demented and disgusting. All the acts he did, and then you get into the stuff he did to himself.
Oh yeah. Oh my gosh.
At one point they found, what was it, upwards of 36 different straight pins that he would insert into his gooch.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. He was deranged.
Yeah. He would not only kill and eat little children, he would insert things into himself just because.
And
Is that where the feeling pins and needles came from?
I believe so.
Yeah. Had to be.
wasn't it? Didn't they took him in and were doing an X-ray or something, and the machine kept like malfunctioning because there was so much
metal in him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Oh, Dad, you have jokes.
Dead Paranormal Society. They're our people.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yes.
Dead Paranormal Society said he should have scaled it down.
Yes.
Fish pun.
Yes. Yes. Sir.
Yeah. But I mean, the thing about Albert Fish, though, I mean, you look at pictures of him, he looks
is
like the old guy that lives down the street, you know?
Well, actually, sometimes in some pictures,
He
he
looks like the
there's
creepy
the
old fucker that
scary,
scares kids.
Yeah, the scary guy that lives in
Herbert.
a really old, yes, Herbert's pervert.
Chris. I wish Xander was here.
I
Xander could do
know.
that impression
Get
so
your fat
good.
ass over here, Paul.
Oh,
You remember if you ever saw the original Home Alone when Kevin first sees the old man across the
Yeah.
street, first time I saw the movie, I went, oh fuck, it's Albert Fish.
Yeah.
He reminds me of Albert Fish. Scares the shit out. I don't care if he becomes okay in the end. He looks like Albert fucking Fish, and he's frightening.
Albert Fish shows up to your house and he's like,
Guess who?
Ah.
All right. Next on our countdown of cannibalistic serial killers.
Next up, we have Joachim George Kroll. He's definitely one of the worst cannibal serial killers that's ever lived. As a German serial killer, child molester, and a cannibal, he was known as the Ruhr cannibal, Ruhr hunter, and the Duisburg man-eater.
Duisburg man-eater.
Kroll was actually convicted of 8 murders, yet confessed to a total of 14, which he committed in and around the Ruhr metropolitan area. Kroll was certainly not the smartest serial killer around, with a fairly low IQ. He found cannibalizing young children to be the most satisfying meals he's ever had.
They're tender.
Cream of some young boy.
I had that over at the Chinese place the other day.
That was his cat.
Oh, sorry.
After murdering a 4-year-old girl, girl soup.
Oh.
The neighbors were curious why the waste pipe was clogged. Sorry, if I don't make jokes, I'm gonna barf. The neighbors were curious why the waste pipe was clogged, and when one neighbor asked Kroll if he knew what was stopping up the pipes, he replied with guts. The pipes were blocked by the young girl's intestines.
Wow. And, okay, does it not shock anybody else that when the neighbor asks, he's like, meh, it's guts.
Guts.
Yeah.
I mean, I wonder if that's part of the whole low IQ thing. He was just kind of like, no, that's guts.
Yeah. I couldn't eat. They were chewy, so I just put them down the toilet.
They didn't know how to
Just
cook them.
not the same as chitlins. You just don't cook it the same.
Yeah, totally different. Ugh.
I've never ate them the first time.
Help me, could I borrow a plunger? There's something wrong with my toilet.
Guts.
It's guts.
It's full of guts. I can't get them down. Help me.
All right.
I'm the Duisburg man-eater.
Oh, my God.
That's where that's. Wasn't there a song called Man Eater?
Yeah, all notes.
Yeah.
I only come out
They
to
meant
dine.
it literally.
I like to eat lean and hungry types. Little girl, come here, get in my mouth.
Oh, my
Oh man, today would be one
Mike
of those
has even
times
disgusted
with a
himself.
video.
Look at his face. Very wrong.
So wrong.
But if you don't make jokes, it makes you
Little
sick.
Little girl.
He
A
ate
4-year-old.
4-year-old little girl.
A 4-year-old.
Veal.
My God.
Kids they turn 5, they're too tough. Just like it 4.
Ew. Okay.
Yuck!
I'm going to go one more since Kroll was a short little blurb. Next up is Arthur Shawcross. Known as the Genesee River Killer, Arthur John Shawcross was an American serial killer who was active in Rochester, New York. He first started murdering in 1972, where he killed a young boy and a girl right in his hometown of Watertown, New York. He pled guilty to 1 charge of manslaughter and served 12 years of a 25-year sentence. What the fuck is wrong with our justice system, even back then?
Right.
Then he started killing more victims in 1988 and 89 after being paroled early, which led to criticism of the justice system. Well, no fucking shit. As a deranged murderer, he killed a total of 14 people. He would be convicted of killing 10 prostitutes. Shawcross mutilated their bodies senselessly and claimed to have first cannibalized during the Vietnam War.
Wow.
If you want to just really, really, really disturb yourself, Netflix, you can watch Interview with a Serial Killer. It is a documentary about Arthur Shawcross, and it's literally just a conversation where he sits and very openly talks about, this is what I did and this is why I ate them. Jeez. And you watch it and he comes off as such a fucking just
douche.
Yeah, no feelings whatsoever. Just this is what I did. Fuck it.
Yeah,
it was my right to do it. And it's just like, oh my God. You're just like, what the it's horrible. But he just literally sits there as if you were talking about, this is what I did today. I got up, I went to work, I came here and did this. He talks about, this is how I killed that 14-year-old.
It's like, oh yeah, I picked her up and blah, blah, blah.
It was very easy to take them. I'm like,
jeez.
Oh my God. He talks about how he picked victims and how it was so easy just to get away with it.
Holy God. All right, Steve, I know you want this next guy.
Yes. Easily one of the most twisted and infamous cannibal serial killers in history, Jeffrey Dahmer. Most of us know the story of Dahmer and its inhumane ways. Known as the Milwaukee Cannibal, he was an American serial killer and sex offender who raped, murdered, and dismembered 17 men and boys between the years of 1978 and 1991. And many of his acts included necrophilia, cannibalism, and permanent preservation of body parts. He was actually diagnosed with borderline personality disorder, you think? Schizophrenia, schizotypal personality disorder, and psychotic disorder. Dahmer would usually lure young boys into his apartment, drug them before strangling them, and having sex with their corpses. Then he would dismember their bodies and sometimes eat them. If not, he'd store their parts in barrels and in his freezer. When the police arrived at his apartment, they discovered dismembered body parts everywhere. Skeleton furniture, nude photos, deceased men, and a ton of body parts in the fridge. After being immediately arrested and sent to prison, Dahmer was murdered by one of his prison mates. And when they were searching his apartment, in his freezer, in the ice cube tray, they found,
I bet Elsie doesn't know this.
in his ice cube tray, in every other square was a human testicle, a male testicle. And they asked him about that. And he said, well, he said, sometimes you feel like a nut, sometimes you don't.
Is that his type of mountain oysters?
Yes, it was.
So. Yeah.
Yes, it was.
Sorry. I just peed a little bit.
So
here's the crazy thing. Okay, so we talk about all these psychotic fucking pieces of shit like Gacy and Corll, Fish, all these people that just doing this because they can, and then you get down to somebody like Dahmer. Not the level of brutality and the level of just pure disgust is on the same level, but you've got this person, because he reminds me a lot of the Plainsfield murderer, Ed Gein, where when it came down to it, the whole purpose, I guess, if you put it behind it, was that he said he's trying to create some sort of zombie lover, someone who wouldn't leave him, because people left him his whole life. His parents, he came from a fairly broken home. His mother had psychotic problems. His father left on occasion. So he was trying to find somebody to keep them with him forever. Same thing with Ed Gein. He lived alone with his mother. His mother passed away. He had nobody. So they were basically trying to create some sort of weird zombie person to stay with them. So I want to know from you guys, what do you think? When you look at somebody like a Corll or a Gacy, and then you compare that to somebody like a Dahmer, is it a different type of evil?
It is.
Is that a different I mean, you almost, as disgusted as you are by Dahmer, when you read the whole thing, you almost get to the point where you feel
almost feel sorry for him.
That's sad.
Yeah,
It's really sad. It's fucking psychotic.
Yes,
but it's sad.
Yeah.
See, I think it's two different kinds of evil. You have people like Gacy, Ramirez, Bundy. They're evil. They are. You look up evil in the dictionary, you see their face. Then you have people.
It's almost like a power. I'm going to grab this power. I'm going to show you how much power I have.
Yeah. You have people like Dahmer and Gein and Albert Fish. It takes a whole new kind of psychotic to go to that point to where you will ingest these people.
Well, Dahmer even admitted the fact that when he ate the few of his victims he did it because he wanted to keep a part of them with him
at all times.
Newsflash, digestion.
Right.
Goes in one way, out the other. They're not going to be with you forever. Just saying.
I did.
Poopy pants.
I did hear that that Dahmer had one of his dates. He had actually put them in some really hot chili, and he said because he wanted them to burn his ass one more time.
Oh my gosh. Good night, ladies and gentlemen.
Jesus.
But making furniture and shit out of people's remains.
Ed Gein did the same thing.
Yeah.
Ed Gein had a belt made of nipples.
Yeah. Well, then he has bowls. He had made bowls out of the top of their cranium.
Yeah. And lampshades made from the skin. Ed Gein, he was, making a suit out of different women's flesh.
Which inspired which movie?
Silence of the Lambs.
And would go out and dance around in the moonlight, wearing naked, wearing other people's skin.
And Texas Chainsaw
Massacre.
And Psycho.
Yeah.
God, that'd be such a feeling, wouldn't it? Yeah. Dancing around naked in the moonlight, wearing someone else's skin.
With your nipple belt on.
Got to keep the skin on somehow.
Gobble, gobble, motherfucker!
It's a belt, so it's down here.
Oh, God.
When it's really, really cold, your belt gets really, really pointy.
Yes.
Yeah.
Ow. It becomes a weapon.
Ow. It's cold. My nipple belt's pointing.
I don't know. Steve Urkel's belt was always mid-chest.
That's true.
That's true.
But yeah, I think
I mean, come on. Dahmer had the one guy that he drilled a hole in his head and tried to pour muriatic acid into.
Yeah.
To see if they could create, he could not kill them, but create a mindless sex zombie.
Yeah.
I'm probably, I don't know if I'm correct or not, but I'd say, like the FBI and these criminologists, they probably have a scale of like 1 to 10 on the psychoticness of somebody like a Dahmer, probably a 7, and a Ed Gein, a 5, or, you know what I mean? It's just,
I don't know.
I think there's different levels.
There
are madness.
They all drop off the.
It's just, it's so, because, you put like somebody like a Fish or a Holmes into its own category. They're just fucking psychotic.
Right. How can you determine one killer's more evil than the other?
Or crazier. Even after you look at all of it, you say, okay, who was crazier? Was it Corll? Was it Gacy? Or was Dahmer crazier than all of them?
Right.
I guess that when you say the term crazy, that's when you break out, okay, are they diagnosed crazy? Or are they just nasty, disgusting, sick, perverts?
Societal crazy.
Yeah.
There has to be some level of psychosis that goes past the point of, hey, I'm going to kill this person. Hey, I'm going to kill 39 people. Hey, I'm going to drill a hole in this guy's head and see if I can make a fuck zombie out of him.
Yeah, it's basically like a
hey, I'm going to make a belt of nipples. What what level of however we measure, what fucking level of psychosis is that?
Ding, 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 ding. That level.
Yeah.
Good Lord.
Yeah.
It's just fucking, that's why they're so incredibly...
incomprehensible to normal people.
Well, and that's why people are so interested in it. Because none of us at this table could ever... We could get to a point where we think, okay, well, But none of us could ever actually think, how could you get to a point where you say, okay, I'm not going to kill you, but I'm going to make a suit out of your skin.
Yeah.
And we can make all the jokes we want, but I mean,
Right,
literally,
yeah.
what level of fucking I don't care if you're sad, you're nuts, you sat on a fucking 36 pins up your, whatever. What level of psychosis goes, this is normal, now this is my normal.
Right.
Because you know somewhere along the way, some little voice had to say to one of these fucking people, this isn't right. You can't do this anymore. This isn't right.
I mean, you know how they had, on like cartoons, they've got like the little angel and devil. Like that little devil just go, bing.
Yeah.
It was like, yeah, it's all on you, buddy.
Yeah.
Goodbye.
Dahmer was probably sitting on a park bench one day, seeing a guy walk by with a metal studded belt and said, "Ooh, I bet nipples would look good on that."
No,
Well, the
that was
thing is-
Gein.
Oh,
That was
Gein.
Yeah.
Whomever.
They all had that at some point. Had that. Ooh, what I'm doing is wrong. Because if they didn't, they would have been caught sooner.
Yeah.
Because they became secretive about what they were doing, so they knew that they were wrong.
Yeah.
They just didn't give a fuck.
Taking the case of Dahmer, he was actually he had one one victim that escaped. Police showed up, and he was able to convince the police that it was just a spat between two gay lovers.
Yeah.
And the police left him in his custody.
Yes.
I bet they felt horrible after that.
Well, Dahmer got pulled over at one point
Yeah.
and had a body in the
In the
trunk of his
trunk.
car
Yeah.
and drove away.
Yeah.
So I mean, there's a level of he knew exactly what he was, and he knew it was wrong. And the scary thing with Dahmer, especially, is when you see some of the interviews with him in prison before he died. He knows what the fuck he did,
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
and can talk openly about what he did. And he knows that it was wrong.
Yeah.
Did
So-
he not care, or did he not have the ability to stop?
I think it's both.
Or the want to stop.
I think, it was, I forget who it was I saw on the interview, but it was like they were talking about killing their first victim. And then after that, they were basically chasing, just like a crackhead, they're chasing that next high. And they never could get one equivalent to that first one. They kept going and kept going and kept
Talking
going.
about a lot of that with Ramirez.
Yeah.
That's why it got, some of them got more bloody and more.
Yeah. I mean, they're chasing that high, I mean, just like with Dahmer, yeah, he did wrong and he continued to do wrong. And I think it's, a lot of it was chasing that high. I think that's with a lot of these guys, they're.
See, that's the scary thing with Dahmer, though. I don't know if he was chasing that. I think he was still trying to find the way to make that person that doesn't go away.
Yeah.
And that, to me, that almost becomes, I don't know if you could say it's worse in some way.
It's scarier. It's
No,
scarier because
fucking terrifying.
well, I mean, if you're constantly chasing a high, eventually you're going to fuck up. And had circumstances not prevented themselves to where he got caught, he would have kept going until he either A, succeeded in what science hasn't been able to, or ultimately got caught.
Well, not to cut this short, one more I want read. So we got
That
10
last
minutes. Andrea actually saw this story the other day, and this guy is a whole new. I had never heard of this guy.
I
had
hadn't
never
either.
ever heard of this guy.
So, Richard Trenton Chase, an American serial killer, rapist, cannibal, and necrophile who killed 6 people in the span of a month in Sacramento, California. He was nicknamed the Vampire of Sacramento because he drank his victims' blood and cannibalized their remains. Chase was a native of Sacramento, California. By age 10, he exhibited evidence of all 3 parts of the McDonald triad, an archaic theory suggesting the development of psychopathy. In his adolescence, he was said to be a heavy drug user. Chase developed hypochondria as he matured. He often complained that his heart would occasionally stop beating or that someone had stolen his pulmonary artery. He would hold oranges on his head, believing vitamin C would be absorbed by his brain via diffusion. Chase also believed that his cranial bones had become separated and were moving around, so he shaved his head to be able to watch this activity. After leaving his mother's house, believing she was attempting to poison him, Chase rented an apartment with friends, and then Chase's roommates complained that he was constantly under the influence of alcohol, marijuana, and LSD. He would also walk around the apartment nude, even in front of company. His roommates demanded that he move out, and when he refused, the roommates moved out instead. Once alone in the apartment, Chase began to capture, kill, and disembowel various animals, which he would then devour raw, sometimes mixing the raw organs with Coca-Cola in a blender and drinking the concoction, believing that by ingesting the creatures, he was preventing his heart from shrinking. So Chase spent a brief time in a psychiatric ward in 1973. In 1976, he was involuntarily committed to a mental institution upon being taken to a hospital after injecting rabbit's blood into his veins.
Jesus.
The staff nicknamed him Dracula because his blood fixation. He broke the necks of 2 birds he caught through the institution windows and drank their blood. He also extracted blood from therapy dogs with stolen syringes. Chase was promptly diagnosed with paranoid schizophrenia. After undergoing a battery of treatments involving psychotropic drugs, Chase was deemed no longer a danger to society, and later in 1976, he was released to his mother's custody.
Be free, my child.
What the fuck?
Chase's mother weaned him off of his medication and got him his own apartment. He initially shared the apartment with roommates before all of them moved out, thus leaving Chase on his own. Later investigation uncovered that in mid-1977, Chase was stopped and arrested on a reservation in the Pyramid Lake area. His body was smeared with blood and a bucket of blood was found in his truck. This blood was determined to be cow's blood, and no charges were filed. So on December 29th of 1977, Chase killed his first known victim in a drive-by shooting. The victim, Ambrose Griffin, was a 51-year-old engineer and father of 2. He attempted to enter the home of a woman 2 weeks later, but because her doors were locked, he walked away. Chase later told detectives he took locked doors as a sign that he was not welcome, but unlocked doors were an invitation to come inside. He was once caught and chased off by a couple returning home as he pilfered their belongings. He had also urinated and defecated on their infant child's beds and clothing. On January 23rd of 1978, Chase broke into a house and shot Teresa Wallen, 3 months pregnant at the time, 3 times. He then had sexual intercourse with her corpse while stabbing her with a butcher knife. He then removed organs, cut off one of her nipples, and drank her blood. He stuffed dog feces from Wallen's yard down her throat before leaving. On January 27th, Chase entered the home of 38-year-old Evelyn Meroth. He encountered her friend Danny Meredith, whom he shot with his .22 handgun, then took Meredith's wallet and car keys. He then fatally shot Meroth, her 6-year-old son Jason, and her 22-month-old nephew David Ferreira, before mutilating Meroth and engaging in necrophilia and cannibalism with her corpse. A visitor's knock on the door startled Chase, who fled in Meredith's car, taking the 22-month-old's body with him. The visitor alerted a neighbor who called police. They discovered that Chase had left perfect handprints and shoe prints in Meroth's blood, and he was arrested shortly afterwards. Police who searched Chase's apartment found that the walls, floor, ceiling, refrigerator, and all of Chase's eating and drinking utensils were soaked in blood. In 1979, Chase stood trial on 6 counts of murder. In order to avoid the death penalty, the defense tried to have him found guilty of second-degree murder, which would result in a life sentence. Their case hinged on Chase's history of mental illness and the suggestion that his crimes were not premeditated. On May 8th of 1979, the jury found Chase guilty of 6 counts of first-degree murder and, rejecting the argument that he was not guilty by reason of insanity, sentenced him to die in the gas chamber. His fellow inmates, aware of the extremely violent nature of Chase's crimes, feared him, and according to prison officials, often tried to persuade Chase to commit suicide. Chase granted a series of interviews with Robert Ressler, during which he spoke of his fears of Nazis and UFOs, claiming that although he had killed, it was not his fault. He had been forced to kill to keep himself alive, which he believed any person would do. He asked Ressler to give him access to a radar gun with which he could apprehend the Nazi UFOs so that the Nazis could stand trial for the murders. He also handed Ressler a large amount of macaroni and cheese, which he had been hoarding in his pants pockets, believing that the prison officials were in league with the Nazis and attempting to kill him with poisoned food.
Is that macaroni and cheese in your pocket, or are you just happy to see me?
On December 26th of 1980, Chase was found in his cell dead. An autopsy found that he committed suicide with an overdose of prescribed antidepressants that he had saved over several weeks.
Wow.
Any one of those things, just one,
Yeah.
and you'd go, somebody's got a problem.
Yeah.
Even a fucking pocket full of macaroni and cheese.
Yes.
You'd go, you might want to talk to somebody.
What?
Hold on.
He brought more macaroni and cheese again.
I have tater tots.
He was in the hospital and they let him go.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, this case
He
right here.
stole blood from dogs
Yeah.
in the hospital.
From therapy dogs.
You're good. You're good.
Yeah.
Get out of here, you Skip.
Yeah.
Run along.
I mean, the fact that his mother weaned him off of medication.
Honey, you gotta leave. I can't wash any more of these sheets. These things aren't coming out anymore.
What's with this red?
Honey, we're going to get you your own apartment because I'm afraid to sleep around you.
Yeah.
Mama just
My
scared.
last blender, baby.
Quit chewing
No
on my
more
tampons.
blood and shit in the blender, baby. It doesn't work.
Oh, God. That was too far, buddy. Too far.
I think Mike missed that one. Did you hear me? I said, quit chewing on my tampons.
Too far. Oh,
Teabag,
God.
Mom, it's a teabag.
But this guy, though, I mean, Andrea watched this the other day, and I called her on my way home from work, and she's like, I am watching this documentary. This guy is messed up.
Yeah, they told me about it when I got home from work the other day. It's like, good Lord.
But, I mean, so he...
I mean, the fact that he was a hypochondriac.
Yeah, he thought that his skull was separating, and he was going to die from that.
And
so
somebody stole his pulmonary artery.
Yeah, and he thought he had to... he had to keep drinking this blood so that he could live. The man was not right in the head, okay? Not at all.
No,
I mean,
and honestly and unfortunately, I think, and I hate to play devil's advocate here, but I think he was let down with the system.
Oh, yeah, this is
definitely.
The system really, they screwed him to the point where this is what happens. This is what happens when
our mental health system is
Oh.
severely lacking now.
Yeah.
And this was in the 70s.
Yeah, and
I mean, he killed and ate 2 birds, drank their blood while he was in the hospital, and they still were like, "Here you go, Mama, we're signing him out."
He's good. He's good.
yeah.
Which
I mean,
Just don't buy any parakeets.
Tampons hidden.
I mean,
but
there's so many things. I have questions. I have so many questions.
I mean, out of all these guys we've talked about, a lot of them, it is evil. I think this guy
Was batshit crazy.
was crazy. I mean, I think that out of all the guys that say, I didn't know I was doing wrong, he was the guy that didn't know he was doing wrong.
I
mean, if he would go to a house and the door was locked, I'd turn around and I'd leave because I wasn't welcome because they locked the door.
Right.
But if I walked up to the house and the door was unlocked, I would come in because they were saying it was okay because they left the door unlocked for me.
I will say
he was
too that
mentally unstable.
in the documentary they said that the first woman that he killed, or the 3-month pregnant woman that he killed, he cut open her abdomen, he stabbed every single organ, and he took an empty yogurt cup and
Scooped
out blood and was drinking blood out of, and they couldn't figure out why there were blood rings sitting next to the body because it happened at another body. There was a blood ring where he had
Used a cup.
and they were like, what is this? What is this? And they finally figured out, oh, he's using a yogurt cup.
Yeah.
He's a lovely young man, too.
Yeah, it looks
Pleasant.
Oh, yeah. I think I know him.
Fucking work with him.
I think I dated that guy.
But and the fact that he took off with a 22-month-old and ended up decapitating that baby
Yeah.
after he was already dead
Yeah.
and drinking the baby's blood.
That's all shit that we hear about, in the folklore or the urban legends of Satanism and all this. This guy has no mention of that. You know, this is just him being gone.
That actually sounds
absent
a lot
from
like
his head.
those Florida Man PCP, bath salt stories,
Yeah.
actually, which I found some of those too.
Yeah, one of those took place not far from where my sister lives down there.
Really?
Yeah.
Reach behind you, and there's a stack of papers from last week. Yes. So we can tell everybody what they have to look forward to next week. It'll be on the very last page.
I got it right here. Next week, episode 92. Woo! Next week, we will discuss. We will talk about two people that may not have fit the profile of the American serial killer. In the first hour, we will discuss a very disturbed lady that seemed to have a vendetta towards men that enjoyed blowing off some steam with a lady of the evening, Eileen Wuornos. In hour number 2,
Hey. All right, Eileen.
it's like a game show. In hour number 2, we discuss the man that evaded capture for over 30 years and had confessed to 93 murders.
Come on down, Mr.
Samuel Little.
Yeah.
Yes.
All right.
Yes.
Yeah, so-
that is next week.
Yeah.
We're golf clapping serial killers.
We totally are.
Up next, Samuel Little. After him, Eileen Wuornos.
It's a 33-yard putt.
And he's eating the organs now. Oh,
Shit.
oh, he can't flush the toilet. Too many entrails in the toilet.
Guts.
Damn it. Guts.
Sucks.
And this just in, Corll, get away from the cornhole board.
All right, guys. We did good. We've got 2 minutes to end this.
Look at that. On top of things. I read fast.
Yeah. So, you guys, I hope you enjoyed. Elsie, thank you for coming out and joining us this week.
Great to be back.
Yes. And Mike, thank you for coming out, even though you wasn't going to.
Yes.
Thank you for coming out. We appreciate you being in studio with us tonight. Yes. And Amy, thank you for coming back again.
Yay!
Yes.
Anytime.
Steve and Andrea, thank you for
Living here.
All right, guys.
I made cake.
Yes. And Andrea is dealing with soreness from her second COVID shot. Yeah, Andrea had her second COVID vaccine today, and she's already getting sore. And
I am so tired. It's
and
not even funny. Stop it.
Super tired.
Hey, we should watch that Albert Fish documentary and eat cake.
That sounds great. That sounds great. Yes. All right, guys.
It's red
I'm going to
velvet.
stick a glass tube in my urethra.
I've got one in the hallway.
Awesome.
Yes. All right, guys.
Break it for you?
Yes.
We love you all. Thank you for sticking around with us.
Ouch.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Be sure and check out the Teespring store and check out our Facebook. I made a little video you guys can check out, and I walk you through the entire process of ordering your products on Teespring. So,
Use the code broken glass tube in your urethra.
it will save you,
Saves you
nothing.
Yes, actually, if you want to save 25%, use back to boo.
Yes. All right, guys. For Parrot Talk, I'm Steven.
I'm Steve.
I'm Andrea.
I'm Amy.
I'm Mike.
And I'm Elsie.
You guys have been listening to Parrot Talk, and as always, stay spooky, my friends.
That's all, folks.
You've been listening to Parrot Talk with the East Tennessee Ghost Seekers. If you have a question or comment about the show you've just heard, or you have an experience to share, or you need to contact us concerning an investigation, feel free to email us at etgsparrotalk@gmail.com or call 865-264-0448. That's 865-264-0448. We invite you to find and like the East Tennessee Ghost Seekers on Facebook, subscribe to our YouTube channel, and visit us online at easttnghostseekers.org. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you next time on Parrot Talk.